Instagram Live, Party from Home. Subscribe, follow, send us your voice notes. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, or call us live in studio. Be where the world is going. Stay home and connect online. Boom 1069, IKTV. Join the evolution. It's all about you. Connect now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Page Turners Plus. The last time you saw and heard from us, we were reflecting on Astrid Roemer's On a Woman's Madness. Today, we'll be interviewing Astrid Roemer. Welcome, Astrid.
Hi.
Thank you.
How are you?
Before we get,
you.
oh, nice to see you as well. Before we get into the interview, Astrid wants to make a statement on her novel, which was published in 1982. Astrid?
Thank you. Okay. At that time, I wanted to expose something about comforting relationships or relationships comforted by love. From my point of view, it all happened in a post-slavery time. My characters were driven by love, not by sexual ambitions, and intimate relationships between mature people tend to become physical or erotic, maybe sexual. Boundaries and ties are shaking all the time, and marriage pretends to put it all these sort of uncertainties on hold. But marriage is an institute and not a feeling. In the three intimate relationships my main character had in my novel with two men, including her husband and Ramses, her old favorite, her puppy love, and later with Gabriel. There is nothing, let's say, unhealthy about it. And at that time, the novel is projected in the years of 1940, 50. And at that time, our society still had the brutality of the old colonial powers, like being narcissistic and misogynistic, and this is what all comes together in my novel, and where readers could search for meaning. It's hard for me to some words I haven't spoken for. We're Dutch, so we're not speaking English. But it's a novel not to look for to have a judge to have an opinion about. It's more a novel where I've been searching for meaning in that kind of society. Okay? That's it.
Thank you very much, Astrid. And before we get into this, I just want to thank you very much for agreeing to this. As you mentioned, your first language is Dutch, and you've agreed to do this in English. The first question is at page 104 of the novel. Noinke says, "But I had feelings of guilt," and I'm quoting here. "Was I only using other people as fertilizer for my growing individuality? Would I take the trouble to love other people? Was I willing to protect others? Could I make
Mhm.
sacrifices? Share my truth? Was I an epiphyte winding my way up the strongest tree I could find so that I could flourish in the mists?" And that's the end of the quote. So it seems to me that all the main characters were very selfish. Do you agree?
Of course not, because all the main characters were forced by love. Um, Remember, the main characters are Louis, a young man, Nunca, a young woman, and Ramses, a young man as well, and Gabriel. And it was a pretty messy society there in the years 1940. The whole colonial structure is still is active, and even in the language we speak, because there is Brazil speaking Portuguese, we have the French, and we have the English. We're the only ones speaking Dutch, and it's the smallest country. We're coastal, and most of our land is Amazon rainforest, like more than 93%. Okay, so after slavery came the immigrants, Asian people, the Hindus, and the Muslims, and the Buddhists, and there were some Jews, but the African Surinamese people were there looking for their own ways, their own philosophy to make another kind of living. And it was very, very, very hard because they had no money, they owned no land, they had to, what they call, try to, they say there is a sort of creolization. I don't know if you know the word, the meaning of it. And that meant in Suriname that they have to create their own jobs, small jobs to earn money, and they have to create their own sort of schoolings. And the whole society was a working class society for women and men. Because the immigrants, the Hindus, the Muslims, the Buddhists, etc., the Chinese were Buddhists people, they had their own business. And the administration, the post colonial administration, took them in to do jobs and gave them things. But the African Surinamese people, they had their freedom at 1863 and nothing more than that. No money, no nothing. Okay? So it was a very, very hard time. Okay?
Thank you for that answer, Francine.
On that note, actually, we were interested in finding out why you decided to set the novel at that particular period of time in the 40s and 50s. And I think you briefly touched on it, but can you elaborate a bit more about the choice to write about this particular time that you just partially described?
Okay, I'll try. It's a sort of what I wanted to write a novel, to make a novel, a poetic novel um, about a time when I wasn't in the world yet. Okay, I've been born in 1947. Okay, and this, I said to myself, this is the world my mother wanted me to live in. Okay, and what 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 is this world like? What is this society like? How are these people, and mm, how will it be to be this black girl I am in a society like that? And so I started to make the novel and the pages and so on. And there is something about it because in my own family, there was this um, pretty colonial, a bit white grandma with roots in the slavery, but plantation owners. And there was my granddad. He was a black man from the plantation, and always that friction, and it was this old slavery friction about racism and discrimination, and it was always there in one or another way, and it was there to sense as a child, like, what is humanity? Who is more human? Who's better than the other? And the thing is, being a little girl, we had in my mom's house, we had this person doing, my mom was a teacher, so we had this person cleaning our house, cleaning our clothes, etc. And she was as colored as I am. And I just didn't want her to touch my things. She scared me because everywhere I looked, there were people just like me doing, in my eyes, dirty work. And I thought, I don't want to do that kind of job, never ever. So she wasn't allowed to do anything for me. So I remember my mom said, "Leave Astrid, it's okay." I was like, they didn't understood, and I couldn't articulate the pain and the things I've been feeling. So writing about Nunca, projecting my feelings in this person, is a way to find out, is it possible for somebody like me, Astrid Roemer, to be happy in Paramaribo, in Suriname? Okay?
Oh, very powerful. Thank you for that. Paula?
Thank you, Astrid. Um, you kind of addressed what I'm going to ask you in your statement, in your opening statement, but this is a more direct question. So I want to know, none of the same sex lovers in the novel was exclusively homosexual. For example, Nunca had a passionate relationship with Ramsey.
Mhm.
Um, why didn't you create characters who were exclusively homosexual?
Because starting to writing this novel, I wasn't thinking about homosexuality at all. I've been in my 20s when I discovered that there was something in the world they call homosexuality. I didn't know that it existed. Okay? So it wasn't part of my worldview. So sometimes things will happen in writing a novel, you know? So it's a little bit, it is so strange that it happened like that. And that was the reason that when this novel came out and it was a bestseller for weeks, I've been so ashamed to go out. It was like people would think she is like that. And I never thought about it. I never thought about homosexuality as being a sort of issue. There was nobody in my surrounding I know to be like that. So once I asked a friend of mine later, like 10 years later, tell me, there are no homosexual people in Suriname? At that time, I was in Holland. And she said, of course. And I asked, but why can't I see them? And she said, when you don't know that it's there, you will not recognize it. And that was a good answer to give. Okay. And that's why to answer, that's why it is, it's happening in there in the novel. Okay.
So, continuing on in terms of Noinka, so the fact that Noinka believed that marrying Louis, who himself was black but was financially stable, would make her less vulnerable suggests that she believed that in the Suriname of the 1940s, women were more vulnerable as a group than black people were as a group. I'm also thinking of Gabrielle's inability to leave her husband because she was financially dependent on him.
Mhm.
Is it a fair reading of the text to say it suggests in the Suriname of that era, women of all races were more vulnerable even than black men? If so, has that changed?
Well, not in terms of money, because the let's say the so-called Creole people, it's all working class. We all need money to survive, but surely in terms of let's say what we call violence against women, okay, um, nunca could earn her own money. She was a teacher, okay, and Gabriel, a child, a pretty rich family, the only child. Her father was like a sort of professor, and she is a sort of metaphor to end where to heal Nunca, because her own mom, is a native, and natives in Suriname have the name or are stereotyped of being the people giving help to so-called slaves when they run into the bushes. Okay, so saying this, she doesn't needed money at all. Okay, what she that's another part of another question is what Nunca needed was that she was the youngest child. Her mom adores her. She was uh, she was her eye apple, and her sisters and brothers loved her, and she was very spoiled, and she was, that sort of kid, and so, and then this happened, and she was in another part of Suriname, and she missed her mother, the comfort of coming home and eat what her mother has cooked, and look at her mother, and her mother was saying cozy things to her and things like that. She missed that, and I know it because when I was 20, my mom sent me to Holland, and I missed her like crazy. Okay, I missed her like crazy, and so when she came in Gabriel's household, there was a mom, a great sweet mom. Gabriel really loved her children. And Nunca was so moved by that. And she liked it. And she wanted to be there. And that's how the whole thing started. And Gabriel, from her side, because she was the only child and she really wanted to have a sister or a brother because her parents were very much in love and socializing all the time, she was so happy to have this woman coming to her, and their feelings going like being intertwined, and like a sort of friendship but sweeter, etc., etc. It was a healing thing, like a a sort of, sometimes you're listening to a story or a song or you meet somebody, sometimes a stranger, and the stranger is telling you something, or you read a piece of poetry or whatever, and you hear, and there is something healing inside of you. There's something happening, and that's what happened to them. And what I did is putting the whole structure, because it still is, and it was a sort of colonial administration with a church and the doctors, the hospitals, and the whole, that whole thing controlled by men, justice controlled by men, everything controlled by men. Okay, and I wanted to to show the power of it, how difficult it is to try to avoid the colonial structures and powers, etc.
Okay, you touched on the relationship with Gabrielle. Nunca's relationship with Gabrielle was about her needing some sort of healing and the mom figure. And what would you say was the necessity of her relationship with Ramses? What did that afford Nunca? And also, which of these two relationships would you say was the healthier one?
Okay. Um, I wanted to ask you first, what is an unhealthy relationship?
That's a great question. I guess for us, an unhealthy relationship is one where at least one of the parties is, I guess, deeply unhappy
Mhm.
the majority of the time, and there doesn't seem to be any sort of true connection between the two people, and one or both of the parties are simply using the other one for their own needs. That would be off the cuff my very quick definition.
Okay. Have you ever seen a arranged marriage by Hindus? Have you
I
ever
mean,
been to something like that?
no, I've never actually been to. I'm aware of them, but I've never been to an
Okay,
arranged
I
wedding of
did
an arranged marriage. Yeah.
very, very often, because they are part of our so-called society. And I'll tell you, I was like a child of 6, 7, and they invited us because my mom was their teacher. And okay, and what you could see there was this bride crying all the time, just crying. Not only the child cry, the bride crying, her mom, her sisters, the whole female thing was like crying really loudly. Okay, and of course they were crying, because now that I'm older, I know that they've been crying because there is no way back if you go into that kind of relationship. Okay? There is no way back, no divorce, nothing. And the girls and the women know what they are going through. And that it will take years and years to find a way to cope with it. Okay? And we Creole people, we don't have that kind of relationships and this kind of getting married with people you know, your family know, and etc. We kind of lose a little bit. We like or love somebody, take this person home, and we don't care about if this man likes our mom or not. We even marry a man when he say he hates our mother, or they can't go along with our dad. You know, that is impossible in a setting of Hindu and Muslims. Impossible. Because they say, listen, you you marry the family, the whole family. She or he is part of the family, but we are here, and we will stand for you as well. So what now Louis is black, and Nunga's daddy is a black man, a very well-looking, beautiful faced, long, tall, nice, with a very good language used, and very elegant, uh, and but it, but but to say from a certain perspective, he's black, and black it's not a class society in Suriname. It's society based on colorism. You know what I mean? And the closer you are near the white colonial power with your skin color, the better. So, okay. So, but she loved her dad a lot. So there was not something she doesn't like about black people. Not at all. She loved Louis. And she doesn't want to marry him immediately. But he said, it's okay. You don't have to cook. You don't have to this. You don't have, I just love you. I have this money coming back from Venezuela with this pocket of money. You're nice, and I want to marry you. I want to make you happy. He really loved her. But there was this strange thing that was part of her own household. Is he a good enough person to be married to and to have children with because he was black? So it was, she couldn't articulate it, but it was a shock when she married him and she was there in his house, knowing I have to stay with this person for the rest of my life. Ooh, I don't want to. I'm not feeling good about it. And in Holland and in Europe, they used to send their children to go to therapy to find out what's going on and how to help them to get rid of all these feelings, especially Jewish children, because the Jewish children experienced by what happened in the war. They know there is something between them and the people in Europe. The same thing. Okay? So all the Jews with some money send their children as soon as they're 12 in therapy. Go and talk about it. Find it out. But we don't do things like this. So Nunca wasn't feeling okay with him. And she that sexual part, well, when you're young, when you're a virgin, when you're, or maybe when you feel like a virgin, when you think you want to give your body and everything to a man, there is there must be there must be a very deep feeling of yes, yes, I want to be with this person for better or worse. And that wasn't a thing. And maybe you remember when you, in the novel, there was this moment when Nunca took Louis to her parents, and they were sitting, and they talked, but her daddy looked at him and knew immediately that it would not work. He knew. And sometimes we hate it, but parents do know something more than we do when we come with our partners. They say, well, okay, go on, but okay. And that is my way of answering this question.
Most of the relationships, Astrid, in the novel are between people who love each other, but they're still very difficult relationships, most of them. What made you so interested in exploring difficult relationships, especially between family members?
Because um, a sort of stereotype, or maybe it's a statement. I'm a family therapist too, a professional family therapist. Violence, most of the violent things between people are rooted in nearby people, relations, family, like. Okay, there is so much violence between family members. Not because they don't love each other, it's more because they are so closely related that feelings we must experience as being human, like jealousy. How do you handle jealousy? But it's important to know that sometimes you're jealous when your sister is getting more attention or something, okay? And how to handle it. And feelings like between brothers and sisters when they are like in their teener time, okay? These feelings like this boy looking at his sister and feeling something sexual. How do you handle it? But it's normal. It's not his his ugliness. It's his body acting like that. We are made like that. Men are made to be attracted like that. Huh? But they have to learn how to handle their feelings. We are made to be like lovely, making this thing so to be liked and so on and so on. And but we are learning, we girls, we are learning better than the boys to handle it. So all these sort of feelings, they explode in a family relationship because you have all kind of relations. Some you like more, and what sometimes you don't like your sister, or you don't like your brother, and you're feeling ashamed about it and things like that. Let me say this, and that is healthy. It is so healthy to feel all these feelings, because if you learn to deal, to cope with all these feelings, you're a person who can be more nicer to other people around you, because you don't feel ashamed when you have a good friend and she has something better than you and you feel a little bit jealous. And well, it's not me being jealous. It's how things work in me that is keeping us going. This all these strange feelings are making us what we are. Okay, and so I can't see it as unhealthy, but I wish there there we must write more about family relationships, and we must teach our children more about their feelings, and let them speak out what they feel, and what happens with them, and so okay, that it's not bad, it's good. Our feelings are the most authentic things we experience as a person.
I definitely agree there, and I kind of want to move on to honoring ancestral legacies, because that was a really strong theme in the novel. So, for example, uh, Noinka's mother is a committed Christian and professes to despise the old gods and the African ways of Noinka's father. But when Noinka is hurt, she seeks help from the goddess Anana. I hope I pronounced that correctly. So Ramses tells Nunca that, quote, if you want something to change, you have to merge with it. Yet he himself calls on the goddess Anana in a time of crisis. So the questions that I have, and this is a three-part question, I suppose. Can we realistically hold on to our ancestral traditions even though we've been transplanted to the Americas for centuries? And two, is there value in observing a syncretic system of beliefs which combine our ancestral ways with what our colonizers imposed on us? And the last part is, are the ancestral ways and our colonizers' ways impossible to reconcile?
Okay, I'll start with the last one. Yes, they are impossible to reconcile. I love this one. I love it because, you know, let's look at Suriname. I don't know how it all worked in your place, on your islands, but slavery started 350 years ago. We don't know where all these people were grabbed from. Okay, they came to, let's say, our part of the world in Suriname, and they stay there for, let's say, in 100 years, 350 years. In 100 years, there are 4 generations, maybe more, because as soon as a child has her first period, the new generation started. But let me say 4. Then we have like 4 in a year, in 3 years, 12, and then in 50 years, 14 generations. They didn't know anything about they, the hardest part for me is being a writer is that I cannot imagine and at all. My brain isn't going that far. How would it be to be born in that period of time? I really don't know. It's so hard. How is it possible that people were there living like that, in that sort of context? Oh, it must be, it's so brutal. I can't imagine it. Okay? And then, so it is more than stress. It's so much more than that. And the thing is, some people, some of them fled to the rainforest. And the rainforest is the rainforest. I mean, the Amazon rainforest is a place full of wild animals. The wildest thing there is the big anaconda snake. It is a horrible, sometimes 29 to 30 feet long creature. And it's still one of the things tourists like to go and search for when they go to the Amazon. And remember, these people running to the bushes, getting to see parts of the snakes. And just like the Greeks did, you know what the Greeks did when they were so scared for the sea? The sea was a threat to the Greeks. They named them. They give them like you're a god, Poseidon, and you are Neptunus, and you are this, and you are that. And that's the same the so-called slaves did. Okay, they said you are Anana, you are the god of the forest, you are the heaviest, the biggest, the larger, the heavier, etc. And so they did with the big cats because they were so scared. They couldn't handle all this wonderful, great, strong creatures. Okay, okay. So they started their own kind of thinking about it. And when you tell your child, don't go to that corner of the street because there is something, no, somebody is there. You can't see that somebody. When you're talking about somebody, you can have a chat with that somebody. If you say something, you can't have a chat with that something. But if you say it's somebody, you can bring like things to eat and put flowers and ask that somebody. That's why we made a God. And we can say, hey, God, listen, don't you feel what I feel? Okay. So that was their sort of religion, far away from their ancestors somewhere in Africa. And my last novel, Dealer's Doctor, dealer's daughter, is about a young boy from that part of Suriname, okay? Going to through Paramaribo to Amsterdam, from Paramaribo to Amsterdam. But I'm telling you, there still is, and that is a way of driving farther and farther away from slavery times. There still is a sort of belief here, like they have a voodoo somewhere. There is a something they call winti, which means wind, and wind is mind, you know. And they have their things with a god, a ground god, and you have like a bird god, and you have like a cat god, a big cat god, and all kind of gods. And when people have their problems, they go and this winty priest might say, well, it is your family bird god, so you have to buy uh, like uh, like the colors of the bird and clothes and use them, and you have to give this god to eat. So we're looking what this god is eating, and we have a tafra, a dining, a dinner with the family, etc., etc. And people, just like in Christianity, they tend to believe it. They are looking for help. Why is my life so difficult? But their life was difficult because they are black, because the society is white, and everywhere they find white walls and the whole white thing. Huh? And they couldn't. It was hard for them when I articulate in Holland. No, it's just because of racism. It's all racism. It's all discrimination. All the black men in Holland couldn't find a decent job, a white-collar job. Oh, maybe you need this golden ring, and maybe you need this. That's why the windy priest might say, no, it's racism because they don't want you in. You're not welcome. Okay? So, going back to the things in Africa, listen, sir, look at Africa now. Millions and millions and millions of beautiful people are running away from Africa. And you know what? I love it. I love it. I don't want to watch them being primitive, being without knowledge about the world. I don't like it. I want them to be part of the world. Okay? And it might take some deaths in water or whereas, and a lot of poverty and a lot of hatred, but they are making it. And their children are doing better and better. And I love it. Okay? So no, I don't think, to me, Africa is like a dream, because I know that there was a time in Africa when everything was. Herodotus, a Greek traveler, wrote about Africa, was the first one to write about Africa, saying he never, ever, ever, and Plato wrote about it again, he never, ever have seen nowhere in the world a society like that, where men and women were equal, where there was so much tenderness between women, men, and their children, and where everything was so clean and so beautiful and so. That is Africa. And nobody will ever take this away from me, because it is a fact. Okay, and it all changed. We know how it changed, but societies are going through difficult times sometimes, and they change. But then again, no, there is nothing there from ancestors, the kind of ancestors walking around that I really need now. African people are coming around everywhere in the world, and people are getting so-called white people with with less pigment in their skin, they were getting browner and browner and redder. They say there is one race, we are all a red, and brown is a color of red. Okay, and let it be. Let's go for it.
I'm really enjoying this conversation, but unfortunately, we're out of time. The next time, we'll be reflecting on Marlon James's Moon Witch Spider King. But before I end, I want to thank you, Astrid, for joining us today. It has been a lovely conversation. And thank you for giving us such a beautiful insight on Suriname and life in colonial and post colonial Suriname. To end, we'll give you a treat. We will have a reading by Astrid Roemer. Thank you very much for joining us.
Het laatste feest. Het afscheid is bij de zee die hoog is en gespannen. De stenen dijk.
The last party. The farewell is at the sea, which is high and agitated. The stone dike looks grimy and decrepit. The air is heavy with visible mist, an enmeshed entity with the ocean. Uneasy as a fatty body of a prehistoric animal, the water sloshes against the wall with clipped regularity. I don't dare to take a close look. I have a primal fear of natural sources of water. Ramsey's lectures, land reclamation, ocean currents, fertile clay, shore prospects. Lost for words from all the water, I listen. When he insists on taking a walk on the dike, I turned my back on the Atlantic. Then we bike to the ocean through a forest that smells of rotting wood and decaying vegetation. Dark trees with damaged trunks like the torsos of humanity-hating giants. I pressed on. Ramses is with me. He's a friend who loves me. I'll follow him. We can't see much more of the beach than a strip of sand scattered with driftwood. Again, the sea. No apathetic, but more threatening than behind the dikes. Let's wade through the water, he proposes. I shake my head. Swarms of dragonflies glide by. You're scared? No, I say, although I feel as if we're being spied on by bizarre beasts. You're shaking, he notices. It's the wind, I retort. He breathes the air in deep. Reverently, he moves forward, completely tuned into his environment. You should see the orchids. I can't go any further. Then I'll bring one here for you. Before me, the water. Fragrant trees behind me. I feel lost. Stay with me, Ramses, I call out, caught in an upswell of emotion. He returns in an instant, disappointed, but pulls me in close. Somewhere, there are branches falling. You don't know what orchids are, he says softly. No, I agreed. Orchids are flowers from the Garden of Eden. They've overcome the greatest catastrophes to become unobtainable for mankind. Solitary plants, flowers that are only for people who truly love them. They spread themselves across the earth in so many incredible shapes and colors. Sun, rain, wind, ice. They withstand it all. They are indescribable. It moved me, without my being able to picture what he meant. I loved wild roses and deciduous trees in bloom. He'd looked at me as if revealing a secret as he said, It's crazy, Nunca, but orchids keep me alive. And your parakeets? I said, my voice small, but his tongue was between my teeth and his saliva slid down my throat. When we came into the kitchen, my mother and Lady Morgan are standing by the counter. I smell raw egg and almond extract. I see swollen prunes in stoppered bottles. I presume prune cake. Languidly, I turn in circles. I wash my hands, blowing at the flour. You look pale, noted the lady. She's afraid of the sea, he says, quickly defending me. I'm tired, I translate. My mother whirls around and stares at me. Is something wrong, my child? I flinch, shake my head no. She draws near, looks at Ramses, and then at me. Yellow and white drips down her apron. The egg is broken in her hand.